I just try to treat everything as if we're on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Man, it's hard not to be drawn into the culture war that has absolutely consumed Hollywood. And let's be honest, it's destroyed it at the same time. I'm a screenwriter here in Los Angeles, so I see things firsthand. It just boggles my mind why companies such as Disney take epic global franchises that they've purchased for billions of dollars and purposefully destroy the very essence that made them what they are and show utter disdain to the millions of fans who eagerly spend their money to watch the shows and buy the fan-related merchandise. We all know that Disney is a princess brand, and everyone probably should have seen the writing on the wall when they bought Lucasfilm in 2012 for $4.1 billion. But any sane person couldn't envision a company intentionally destroying the massive fan base that made Star Wars what it was. It's the reason it cost so much in the first place. That is what you buy when you purchase a media property like Star Wars, a massive installed fan base so that you can continue to service them with existing movies and TV shows and create new content to grow and expand the universe.
Flawlessly logical.
Enter the Acolyte 12 years later, and you have a Star Wars brand that has been stripped and torn of everything that made it what it was to hundreds and millions of fans. Viewership has declined by over 80% by some estimates. Others argue that the fall has been closer to 90%. Regardless of the exact number, we can all agree that there has been a massive exodus of fans who have left the Star Wars franchise and will most likely never return as long as it's in the control of the Walt Disney Corporation, Lucasfilm, and Kathleen Kennedy. The Acolyte is simply the clearest example of what Disney thinks of those millions of fans who were once so dedicated to the Star Wars franchise. Remember the Star Wars Galactic Cruiser that opened up on March 1st, 2022? It cost as much as $1 billion to make, and I'd argue that that number is even higher as a lot of those costs get moved around to make these projects look better on paper. But it ended up closing in September of 2023, just over 1 year, because no one cared. No one wanted to spend that kind of money on an empty and declining brand. That's only 18 months before the plug was pulled on that substantial financial loss. And Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy still don't get it, or they just don't give a damn. I mean, this really shows how clueless Disney is. They spent more energy destroying and alienating the Star Wars fan base than they have trying to build it.
Well, I do know a lot of secrets. So you'd probably have to tie me up and coerce me.
They've allowed the activists with a DEI social agenda to firmly take control of all the creative decisions at Disney to the detriment of the millions of Star Wars fans. The Acolyte is the latest and clearest example of the activist monster that has taken control of every new Star Wars project, inserting a political social agenda. And for what? For what reason? What is the business case to be made for destroying and alienating your own fan base? Shouldn't you just make great stories for your audience? I mean, that seems like a better idea. But Disney could care less about the fans. As a matter of fact, they don't even want these Star Wars fans anymore. They attack them by calling them vicious, derogatory names for the crime of being passionate about Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy, the head of Lucasfilm, has taken a male-dominated brand and made creative decisions to consciously and completely shut them out of new shows and movies. She coined the term, "the Force is female." I mean, why is the Force female? Why not just have the Force be the Force? I mean, God, why is this even a point of discussion?
It's kind of sad that we have to tear it down.
The Acolyte is nothing more than Disney, Lucasfilm, Bob Iger, and Kathleen Kennedy giving the millions of Star Wars fans who were hanging on by a thread the middle finger with one hand and a wave goodbye with the other. It's a show that embodies everything that Disney has become, a self-centered, arrogant, egotistical company that has unequivocally lost the understanding that they serve the audience. Their audience does not serve them.
Yes, yes.
Lesbian space witches, twins with two mothers? The Force is now the thread? I mean, this is a TV show that cost over $180 million to make, but the production scripts and sets are so bad that it looks like they actually spent nothing more than $20 million. Dune Part 2 had about the same budget. And if you compare it with the Acolyte, you can clearly see how unqualified amateurs have taken over the production process at Lucasfilm and Disney.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
What makes this all kind of perplexing is that when you purchase a business, you should want to grow the existing fan base, not destroy it. I mean, that's what you purchased, a large group of dedicated fans willing to spend their money on new movies and TV shows, not to mention the existing ones. Disney paid $4.1 billion to acquire this fan base, so why treat them like the enemy? Agenda, my friends. Politically driven social agendas, that's why. Disney is quite possibly doing the one thing that will be their undoing and could, and I say this with a serious tone after working on Wall Street for several years, result in the Walt Disney Corporation becoming extinct. Yes, bankrupt. Disney has over $40 billion in debt, a declining box office, stagnant parks revenue, declining sports media revenue as well, and a less than successful streaming service. Now you throw in a recession and even more people turning their backs on Disney, and you have a recipe where the perfect financial storm takes this media giant down. If you look back to 2012, you can see how much potential Star Wars had to grow as the #1 sci-fi global media franchise. It had endless opportunities to expand the lore and its characters, even though the 3 prequels weren't received as well as George Lucas would have liked back then. But today, those prequels have never looked better, and I think that really shows how much damage Disney has done to the Star Wars franchise and universe. Back then, there was real hope that Disney might be the perfect owner to take Star Wars to all new places. After all, we just saw the first Avengers movie, which was released on May 4th, 2012. So Disney looked pretty good to a lot of people at the time. Fast forward to today, well, we all know how Marvel has turned out. Not much better than Star Wars. The Acolyte has and will play a major role in moving Disney closer to extinction. Toy sales for anything Star Wars have fallen off a cliff. No kid wants them, and no parent wants to buy them. And that is a huge warning sign flashing to the top brass at Disney. Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy will go down in history as the ones who destroyed one of the most loved and admired sci-fi universes ever. Ultimately, I blame the board of directors, who had every opportunity to make changes. For years, they just sat back and watched the neophytes who run Disney's day-to-day operations destroy Star Wars, alienate and insult millions of fans for the crime of having a passion and loving the Star Wars universe for what it was. And that's all I have to say about Disney and its failure, and I will see you in our next video.